Why do some prayers seem to reach heaven while others fall flat? The answer lies in a missing formula, one that was never revealed in most teachings. In a few moments, you'll uncover the sacred pattern that turns ordinary words into divine commands. This isn't about asking, it's about aligning. Once you understand the missing formula for divine results, the prayer you were never taught, your connection to the unseen will never feel distant again. You have been praying all wrong, and this is why your prayers have gone unanswered, because you have been taught to beg and plead and supplicate before an external force that you believe holds power over you, when in truth, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and the power you seek outside yourself has always resided in the depths of your own consciousness. When you pray in the old way, the way you were taught as a child, you are actually affirming your separation from the divine. You are declaring through your very words and feelings that you lack something and that you are incomplete, that God is somewhere far away listening to your desperate appeals. And this belief, this fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of prayer, is precisely what keeps your good from manifesting in your life. The prayer that works, the prayer that heals, the prayer that transforms your circumstances and brings about what you might call miracles, is not a prayer of petition at all, but rather a prayer of acceptance, a prayer of gratitude for that which is already yours in the invisible realm of infinite possibility. You see, when a woman came to Dr. Joseph Murphy and said she had been praying for years for her husband's healing and nothing had changed, he asked her how she prayed, and she described long sessions of begging God to please heal her husband, to please take away his suffering, to please restore him to health. And in every word she spoke, she was impressing upon her subconscious mind the image of her husband as sick, as suffering, as in need of healing. This is the great mistake that millions make every day, praying from a consciousness of lack, of need, of desperation, thereby perpetuating the very conditions they seek to change. The true prayer, the prayer that was never taught to you in churches or temples or any institution of traditional religion, is the prayer of embodiment, where you feel in your heart and accept in your mind that your desire is already fulfilled, that the healing has already taken place, that the abundance is already yours, that the solution has already arrived. When you pray in this way, you are not trying to change God's mind or convince some external deity to grant you favor, but rather you are aligning your consciousness with the divine law that already exists, the law that states, "Whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believing you have already received it, shall be given unto you." And the key word here is believing, not hoping, not wishing, not begging, but believing with complete acceptance that it is already done. Your subconscious mind is the soil in which every seed of thought takes root and grows into the circumstances of your life. And this subconscious mind does not reason or argue or debate with you about whether your thoughts are good or bad, true or false. It simply accepts what you impress upon it and proceeds to bring it into manifestation in your external world. When you understand this fundamental truth about the nature of your own consciousness, you begin to understand why the prayer of supplication has failed you. Because every time you pray from a place of fear or lack or desperation, you are planting seeds of those very conditions deep into the subconscious soil. And the subconscious, being completely neutral and impersonal, accepts these impressions as instructions and creates more fear, more lack, more desperation in your experience. A man once told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he prayed every night for financial abundance, but his debts only seemed to multiply. And when asked to describe his prayer, the man revealed that he spent his prayer time worrying about his bills, visualizing his mounting debts, feeling the anxiety of not having enough money, and then asking God to please help him get out of this terrible situation. You see what he was doing? He was using the sacred time of prayer to rehearse and reinforce the very vibration of poverty, consciousness. He was meditating on lack while hoping for abundance, and the subconscious mind received these powerful emotional impressions of debt and worry and proceeded to create more situations that matched that frequency. This is why you must learn to pray with feeling, Not the feeling of need or desperation, but the feeling of fulfillment, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of actually having received that which you desire. Your subconscious mind responds to feeling more than to words. It is moved by the emotional tone behind your thoughts, by the conviction in your consciousness, by the acceptance in your heart that what you seek is already yours in the realm of spirit before it manifests in the realm of matter. The Bible tells you to pray believing you have received, not believing you will receive, not hoping you might receive, but believing in this present moment that it is already done, already accomplished, already given. And this belief must be accompanied by the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you can sit quietly and imagine your desire as already manifested, when you can feel the joy and relief and satisfaction of having it now, when you can whisper, "Thank you for this blessing that is mine," you are then praying in the way that moves the creative power within you to arrange circumstances and events to match the picture you have accepted. The reason your prayers seem to bounce off the ceiling and return to you unanswered is that you have been praying to a God outside yourself, a God sitting on a throne somewhere in the sky, weighing your worthiness and deciding whether to grant your request, when the truth that mystics and sages have known throughout the ages is that God is not a person or a being separate from you, but rather the infinite intelligence and creative power that flows through all of life and lives within you as in your true self. When you pray to an external God, you are operating from a consciousness of separation. You are affirming that there is a power outside yourself that you must convince or persuade or please, and this very belief blocks the flow of good into your life because you are denying the presence of divinity within your own being. A woman approached Dr. Joseph Murphy after years of unanswered prayers for her daughter's recovery from illness, and she described how she prayed every day on her knees, begging God to have mercy, to please heal her child, to please not take her daughter away. And in every prayer, she was affirming separation, affirming fear, affirming the possibility of loss, and her subconscious mind received these powerful negative impressions and perpetuated the condition. The prayer that works is the prayer that recognizes God as the infinite presence within you, the unlimited creative power of your own consciousness, the divine intelligence that animates your body and governs the universe. And when you pray, knowing this truth, you are not trying to reach someone far away, but rather you are stirring the power within yourself. You are activating the divine law that operates through your consciousness to bring your desires into form. This is why Jesus taught that the kingdom of God is within you, not somewhere in the distant heavens, but right here in the depths of your own awareness. And when you seek this kingdom first, when you turn within to the source of all power and all good, everything else is added unto you because you are now working with the law instead of against it. You must stop thinking of prayer as a means of changing God's mind and start understanding it as a means of changing your own mind, of shifting your consciousness from limitation to abundance, from fear to faith, from lack to fulfillment. Because when your mind changes, when your consciousness shifts, your entire world must change to reflect this new inner state. The great secret that has been hidden from you by centuries of religious misunderstanding is that you are not praying to change external conditions, but to change your internal consciousness, because your external world is always and forever a mirror reflection of your internal world, a perfect outpicturing of your dominant thoughts and beliefs and feelings. When you look at your life right now, at your health, your relationships, your financial situation, your circumstances, you are looking at a photograph of your consciousness. You are seeing the visible manifestation of your invisible thought patterns, and if you wish to change the photograph, you must change the negative. You must transform the consciousness that created it. This is why affirmative prayer works where petitionary prayer fails, because affirmative prayer is the conscious act of impressing upon your subconscious mind the image and feeling of your desire already fulfilled, thereby changing the negative from which your life experience is printed. A man once complained to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been attending church for 30 years, praying every Sunday for prosperity, and yet he remained in poverty. And when asked about the nature of his prayers, The man revealed that he prayed for God to bless him with money because he was tired of being poor, because he could not pay his bills, because he felt like a failure, and every word of his prayer was saturated with the consciousness of poverty. You cannot pray yourself into prosperity while feeling poor. You cannot pray yourself into health while feeling sick. You cannot pray yourself into love while feeling lonely, because the subconscious mind responds not to your words but to your feeling, not to what you say but to what you truly believe and accept as true. The prayer that heals and transforms and manifests is the prayer where you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, where you close your eyes and imagine so vividly that your desire has already come to pass, that you actually feel the reality of it in your body, in your emotions, in your entire being. When you pray for healing, you must feel yourself already healed. You must give thanks for the perfect health that is yours now. You must see yourself whole and well and vibrant. And this feeling, this acceptance, this knowing that it is already done, is what impresses the subconscious mind and sets the creative forces in motion too. Your imagination is the workshop of God within you, the divine faculty through which all things are created. And when you learn to use your imagination in prayer, you become a conscious co-creator with the infinite intelligence that governs the universe. Everything that exists in your physical world was first imagined, first conceived in consciousness before it took form in matter. And this law applies to every aspect of your life, every condition you experience, every circumstance you find yourself in. Because you are constantly imagining something, constantly holding mental images, constantly creating through the power of your thought, whether you are aware of it or not. The tragedy is that most people use their imagination against themselves. They imagine the worst possible outcomes. They rehearse in their minds the very things they do not want. They visualize failure and lack and sickness, and then wonder why these conditions manifest in their lives. When you pray in the old way, the way of petition and supplication, you are actually using your imagination to create images of lack, of need, of problems that require solving, and these images sink deep into your subconscious mind and become the blueprints from which your experience is constructed. A woman came to Dr. Joseph Murphy, seeking help for her troubled marriage, and she explained that she prayed constantly for her husband to change, to become more loving, to stop his angry outbursts. And in her prayers, she would imagine all the ways he disappointed her, all the times he had hurt her, all the reasons she needed God to intervene and fix him. You see, she was using prayer time to rehearse and reinforce the negative patterns, to cement in her consciousness the image of her husband as angry and unloving, and the subconscious mind, receiving these powerful emotional impressions, created more situations that matched this image. The correct use of imagination in prayer is to construct a mental scene that would exist if your desire were already fulfilled, to see in your mind's eye the end result as though it were happening now, to make the invisible visible through the power of disciplined imagination. If you desire healing, you imagine yourself doing the things you would do if you were perfectly healthy. You see yourself moving with ease and strength. You feel the vitality coursing through your body. You give thanks for this wonderful health that is yours now. The law of your subconscious mind is the law of belief. And whatever you believe with feeling becomes your reality, not because God rewards belief or punishes doubt, but because your subconscious mind is the creative medium through which your beliefs take form in your world. When Jesus said, "All things are possible to him that believeth," he was not speaking of blind faith or wishful thinking, but of the scientific principle that governs the relationship between your conscious and subconscious mind. The principle that states your subconscious mind accepts as true whatever your conscious mind believes and feels to be true, and then proceeds to manifest circumstances that correspond to this belief. This is why the prayer of faith, the prayer where you believe you have already received, is the only prayer that produces results. Because in that moment of belief, in that acceptance of your desire as already fulfilled, you are impressing upon your subconscious mind the image of completion, of having, of being, and the subconscious responds by creating the conditions necessary to make this image a reality in your outer world. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had prayed for years to overcome his fear of public speaking, but the fear only seemed to grow stronger, and when asked how he prayed, the man described long prayers where he begged God to take away his fear, to please help him speak without trembling, to please remove this terrible anxiety, and in every prayer he was affirming and reinforcing the very fear he wished to overcome. You cannot overcome fear by focusing on fear. You cannot eliminate lack by meditating on lack. You cannot heal sickness by rehearsing symptoms, because whatever you give your attention to, whatever you feel deeply about, whatever you accept as true, your subconscious mind brings into your experience. The way to overcome fear is to imagine yourself speaking confidently and successfully, to feel the calm assurance of one who knows his message and delivers it with power, to give thanks for this newfound confidence that is yours now. And as you persist in this new belief, as you maintain this feeling of confidence, your subconscious mind accepts it and transforms your entire nervous system to match this new self-image. Your beliefs are not abstract mental concepts, but living forces that shape your destiny. And when you change your beliefs through the practice of affirmative prayer, through the deliberate cultivation of faith in the invisible reality of your fulfilled desire, you change your destiny. The power that responds to your prayer is not something you must earn or deserve or qualify for through good behavior or moral perfection, but rather it is your birthright as a spiritual being, the natural inheritance of your divine nature, the automatic response of the infinite intelligence within you to the patterns you impress upon it through your thoughts and feelings. When you approach prayer with a sense of unworthiness, when you believe you must somehow prove yourself deserving of God's blessings, when you think you are too sinful or too flawed or too imperfect to receive the good you desire, you are setting up a barrier in your own consciousness that blocks the flow of abundance and healing and love that is already seeking to express through you. The universe is not withholding anything from you. God is not judging you or testing you or making you wait until you become good enough, because the creative power of your subconscious mind operates impersonally according to law, just as electricity flows through any properly connected circuit, regardless of the moral character of the person using it. A woman once confessed to Dr. Joseph Murphy that she felt guilty asking God for help with her financial problems because she had made so many mistakes in her life, because she felt she did not deserve prosperity after all the poor choices she had made, and this belief in her own unworthiness was the very thing preventing her prosperity from manifesting. You see, when you pray while feeling unworthy, you are actually praying for continued lack. You are affirming your unworthiness. You are impressing upon your subconscious mind the belief that you do not deserve good things, and the subconscious, being completely accepting and non-judgmental, creates circumstances that match this belief. The truth is that you are a child of the infinite, an expression of the divine, a center through which God seeks to express beauty and abundance and joy. And your worthiness is not based on your past actions or current circumstances, but on your inherent spiritual nature. When you pray, you must come with the consciousness of a beloved child approaching a loving parent, knowing that all good things are already yours, that the universe is abundant and generous, and that you are worthy simply because you exist as a spiritual being created in the image and likeness of the infinite. This consciousness of worthiness, this acceptance of your divine inheritance, is what allows the floodgates of heaven to open and pour forth the good that has always been waiting for you. Time is an illusion when it comes to the realm of consciousness and prayer, because in the dimension of mind, in the infinite intelligence that is your true self, all things exist now in their complete and perfect form. And what appears to you as future manifestation is actually the slow emergence into physical visibility of that which already exists in spiritual reality. When you pray for something you desire, you are not creating something new or bringing into existence something that does not already exist, but rather, you are becoming aware of and aligning yourself with that which is already yours in the infinite storehouse of possibilities. You are tuning your consciousness to the frequency of the already existing good that seeks to express through you. This is why the great spiritual teachers have always instructed students to pray in the present tense, to give thanks for blessings received rather than blessings hoped for, to speak of their desires as already manifested rather than as future possibilities. Because the language of the subconscious mind is the language of now, the eternal present moment where all power exists and all creation takes place. A man approached Dr. Joseph Murphy, complaining that he had been praying for months for a new job, but nothing had changed. And when asked about his prayer method, the man revealed that he prayed every night, asking God to please send him a job soon, to please let him find something in the near future, to please help him get employed eventually, and every word of his prayer placed his good in some distant tomorrow that never arrives. You cannot manifest in the future because the future never comes. There is only this eternal now, this present moment where all creative power resides, and when you pray, you must claim your good now, accept it now, feel it now, give thanks for it now, as though it were already in your physical possession. The technique of effective prayer is to close your eyes and enter into the silence of your own mind, to quiet all outer thoughts and sensations, to turn within to the source of all power, and there, in that inner sanctuary, to construct a mental scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire, to imagine the end result so vividly that it feels real, to accept it as already accomplished, to give thanks for this wonderful manifestation that is yours now in consciousness, and therefore must soon appear in your external world. Your words have creative power, because they are not merely sounds or vibrations in the air, but carriers of consciousness, vehicles of meaning, expressions of your beliefs and expectations. And when you speak, you are actually commanding your subconscious mind to create conditions that correspond to the nature of your speech. This is why the prayers you speak with your mouth must align with the beliefs you hold in your heart. Because if you pray for health while speaking words of sickness throughout your day, if you pray for abundance while constantly talking about your lack, if you pray for love while describing yourself as lonely and unwanted, you are sending contradictory commands to your subconscious mind and creating confusion in your creative faculties. The Bible warns you to be careful of your words, to speak only that which is good and edifying, to let no corrupt communication proceed from your mouth, because the ancient teachers understood the law of mind that modern metaphysics has rediscovered. The law that states your words are seeds planted in the soil of consciousness that must bring forth fruit after their kind. A woman came to Dr. Joseph Murphy seeking healing from chronic pain, and she reported that she prayed faithfully every morning for relief. But throughout the day, she would tell everyone she met about her terrible suffering. She would describe in detail how much pain she was in. She would identify herself as a chronic pain sufferer, and her words were constantly reinforcing the very condition she prayed to eliminate. You must understand that your subconscious mind is listening to every word you speak. It is recording every statement you make about yourself and your life. It is accepting your self-descriptions as instructions for creation. And if you speak words of limitation and lack and sickness, your subconscious will manifest more limitation and lack and sickness, regardless of how earnestly you pray for the opposite. The discipline of effective prayer extends beyond the few minutes you spend in meditation or affirmation and encompasses your entire way of speaking throughout the day. Because every word is a prayer, every statement is an affirmation. Every declaration about yourself or your circumstances is an instruction to your creative subconscious mind. When you learn to speak only words that align with your desires, when you refuse to describe conditions you do not want, when you consciously choose language that reflects the reality you wish to create, you are practicing prayer without ceasing as the scriptures command. You are maintaining a consciousness of your good throughout the day. You are impressing upon your subconscious mind a consistent message that must manifest in your experience. The feelings you harbor in your heart are more powerful than any words you speak or any thoughts you think, because emotion is the language your subconscious mind understands most clearly, the force that drives your thoughts deep into the creative soil of consciousness, the power that determines whether your affirmations will take root and grow or remain as empty words without effect. When you pray without feeling, when you mechanically repeat affirmations without emotional conviction, when you speak words of faith while your heart is filled with doubt and fear, You are not really praying at all, but merely reciting empty phrases that have no power to move your subconscious mind or change your circumstances. This is perhaps the most critical error that sincere seekers make. They learn the correct words to say. They understand intellectually that they should affirm the positive and deny the negative. They know they should claim their good as already received, but they speak these truths without feeling, without conviction, without the emotional acceptance that breathes life into the mental image and makes it real to the subconscious mind. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been repeating prosperity affirmations for months, but his financial situation had not improved, and when asked to demonstrate his affirmation practice, the man recited the words in a flat, lifeless monotone, like a student reading from a textbook, with no feeling of prosperity, no sense of abundance, no emotional conviction behind the statements. You see, the words themselves have no power. They are merely symbols, and it is the feeling you attach to them, the belief you invest in them, the emotional energy you charge them with, that gives them the power to penetrate your subconscious mind and set the creative forces in motion. When you affirm, "I am prosperous," you must feel the thrill of abundance. You must experience the relief and joy of having plenty. You must allow your heart to swell with gratitude for the riches that are yours. And this feeling, this emotional acceptance, is what convinces your subconscious mind that the statement is true and compels it to create circumstances that match this inner conviction. The technique is to repeat your affirmation slowly and with deep feeling, to let each word sink into your consciousness, to imagine as vividly as possible what it would feel like if your affirmation were already true, to maintain this feeling for as long as you can, because the depth of feeling determines the speed of manifestation. Persistence in prayer does not mean endless repetition of the same petition day after day, year after year, constantly begging and pleading for something you desire but never accepting as received, because this kind of persistence actually demonstrates a lack of faith and reinforces the consciousness of not having what you seek. When Jesus taught that men ought always to pray and not faint, when he told the parable of the persistent widow who kept coming to the judge until he granted her request, he was not advocating the kind of desperate and repetitive begging that characterizes most people's prayer life, but rather, he was teaching the importance of maintaining your consciousness in alignment with your desire until it manifests in physical form. True persistence in prayer means that you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and you persist in that assumption. You maintain that consciousness. You refuse to be moved by contradictory evidence in your external world. You continue to give thanks for your answered prayer, even when your senses tell you nothing has changed. A woman approached Dr. Joseph Murphy after attending his lectures for several months, and she reported that she had prayed the right way. She had assumed the feeling of her wish fulfilled. She had given thanks for her healing, but weeks had passed and her condition remained unchanged. So she concluded that this method did not work for her, and she returned to her old prayers of supplication. This woman failed to understand that there is always a time interval between the planting of a seed and the appearance of the plant, between the impression made on consciousness and the manifestation in circumstances, between the prayer of acceptance and the physical demonstration of the answer. And during this interval, you must persist in your new state of consciousness. You must continue to feel and believe and give thanks as though your prayer were already answered. Because the moment you return to the old consciousness of lack and fear, you uproot the seed you planted and must begin again. Persistence means you do not waver in your conviction. You do not doubt when appearances contradict your desire. You do not change your mental position when outer conditions remain the same, because you know that consciousness is cause and conditions are effect. And when you have truly changed your consciousness through the prayer of acceptance, the conditions must eventually change to match your new inner state. The seed you plant in consciousness today will bear fruit tomorrow, or next week, or next month, depending on your faith and your persistence in maintaining the consciousness of the wish fulfilled. Your imagination and your faith must work together in perfect harmony for your prayers to be answered, because imagination without faith produces only fantasy and daydreaming that never manifests in reality, while faith without imagination has no clear direction or specific goal toward which to work. When you imagine your desire as already fulfilled, you are creating the mental mold, the blueprint, the pattern that your subconscious mind will use to construct your new reality. But if you do not believe in the reality of your imaginal act, if you do not have faith that what you are imagining will actually come to pass, your imagination remains mere wishful thinking without creative power. The practice of effective prayer requires that you combine these two faculties, that you imagine specifically and vividly what you desire to experience while simultaneously believing with unwavering conviction that this imaginal act is actually creating your future, that the scene you are constructing in your mind is not fantasy but reality in the making, that the feeling you are generating now is actually the cause of the condition you will experience later. A man once asked Dr. Joseph Murphy how he could strengthen his faith, how he could truly believe that his imaginal acts would manifest in his physical world. And the answer given was that faith grows through practice, through the repeated experience of imagining something and then witnessing its manifestation, through the accumulation of evidence that this law really works. You begin with small things, with desires that are easy for you to believe in, with goals that do not stretch your faith too far beyond its current capacity. And when you imagine these smaller desires and they manifest in your experience, your faith grows stronger, your confidence in the law increases, and you become able to believe in and therefore manifest larger and more significant changes in your life. The key is to never imagine anything while simultaneously doubting that it will come to pass, to never engage in an imaginal act while thinking this is just fantasy, this will never happen, this is too good to be true, because such thoughts cancel out the creative power of your imagination and leave you exactly where you are. When you imagine, you must imagine believing. You must enter into the scene as though it were real. You must suspend all doubt and skepticism and give yourself completely to the experience of the wish fulfilled. And this combination of vivid imagination and unwavering faith is the missing formula that makes prayer effective and produces what the world calls miracles, but what is actually the natural operation of spiritual law. Gratitude is not merely a pleasant emotion or a polite response to receiving something good, but rather it is the consciousness that attracts more good to you, the magnetic force that draws blessings into your life, the very feeling that must accompany effective prayer, because gratitude implies receiving, and receiving is the consciousness that manifests. When you give thanks for something before you receive it in physical form, you are assuming the consciousness of one who has already received it. You are feeling the emotion that naturally follows getting what you want, and this feeling of gratitude, this consciousness of having, is what impresses your subconscious mind with the reality of your fulfilled desire. The Bible instructs you in all things give thanks, not after you receive what you want, but in all things, in all circumstances, in all situations. Because the practice of gratitude shifts your consciousness from lack to abundance, from wanting to having, from future hope to present reality. A woman complained to Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had nothing to be grateful for, that her life was filled with problems and difficulties, that she could not give thanks when everything around her seemed to be going wrong, and he explained to her that she had reversed the natural order, that she was waiting for conditions to change before she would feel grateful, when the truth is that she must feel grateful first, and then conditions will change to match her grateful consciousness. You do not wait until you are healed to give thanks for healing. You give thanks now for the healing that is taking place in consciousness and must therefore manifest in your body. You do not wait until you are prosperous to give thanks for abundance. You give thanks now for the prosperity that is yours in the invisible realm and is even now making its way into visible form. The technique of giving thanks in prayer is to imagine your desire as already fulfilled, and then to let your heart overflow with gratitude for this wonderful blessing, to feel the genuine appreciation you would feel if you were holding in your hands the very thing you desire, to whisper or speak aloud your thanks to the infinite intelligence that has granted your request. And this feeling of gratitude, maintained and repeated daily, transforms your entire consciousness from one of begging and needing to one of having and receiving, and your external world must conform to this new internal state. The reason most prayers fail is not because God is unwilling to answer or because you are unworthy to receive, but simply because you do not know how to pray. You have not been taught the scientific technique that makes prayer effective. You have been given instead a distorted version of prayer that actually works against you by reinforcing the very conditions you seek to change. What you have been calling prayer is really just worry dressed up in religious language. It is anxiety focused through the lens of spiritual seeking. It is fear expressed as petition to a distant deity. And none of this has any power to change your circumstances, because all of it is operating from the consciousness of lack rather than the consciousness of fulfillment. When you were taught to pray as a child, you were taught to kneel and beg, to plead and petition, to describe your problems in detail and ask for divine intervention, to list all the things you lack and all the ways you are suffering and all the reasons you need help. And every word of this kind of prayer is an affirmation of your current negative condition, an acceptance of your limitations as real and permanent, an impression upon your subconscious mind that you are helpless and needy and dependent upon some external force to rescue you. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been a faithful churchgoer his entire life, that he had prayed every day without fail, that he had attended prayer meetings and prayer groups and prayer vigils, but his life had not improved. His problems had not been solved. His prayers seemed to go unanswered, and he was beginning to doubt whether prayer worked at all. The truth that had to be explained to this sincere seeker was that he had been practicing a form of anti-prayer, a negative affirmation masquerading as spiritual seeking, and until he learned to pray scientifically, to pray with acceptance rather than petition, to pray from fulfillment rather than lack, his earnest efforts would continue to produce no results. The prayer that works, the prayer you were never taught, is the prayer that begins not with a description of your problem, but with a vision of the solution, not with a plea for help, but with a declaration of faith, not with fear and worry, but with calm assurance that what you seek is already yours in consciousness and therefore must manifest in form. The mental picture you hold of yourself is the blueprint from which your entire life is constructed, and if you see yourself as limited, as sick, as poor, as unworthy, as incapable, your subconscious mind accepts this self-image and creates circumstances that correspond to it, bringing into your experience exactly what you believe yourself to be. This is why all the prayers in the world will not change your circumstances if you maintain a negative self-image, because you cannot rise higher than your own concept of yourself. You cannot experience health if you identify yourself as a sick person. You cannot manifest prosperity if you see yourself as poor. You cannot attract love if you perceive yourself as unlovable. The work of effective prayer, therefore, includes the work of revising your self-image, of consciously constructing a new identity in your imagination, of seeing yourself as you wish to be rather than as you currently appear to be. And this new self-image, impressed upon your subconscious mind through repetition and feeling, gradually becomes your reality as your outer world reshapes itself to match your inner vision. A woman approached Dr. Joseph Murphy saying she had prayed for healing from arthritis, but the condition persisted, and when asked how she thought of herself, she immediately identified as an arthritis sufferer. She introduced herself to others as someone with chronic pain. She joined support groups for people with her condition. She read extensively about arthritis, and every aspect of her life reinforced her identity as a sick person. You see, she was praying for healing while maintaining the consciousness of sickness. She was asking to be made whole while identifying with disease, and the subconscious mind always responds to your dominant self-image rather than to your occasional wishes or prayers. The technique for changing your self-image is to construct in your imagination a mental picture of yourself as you want to be, to see yourself doing the things you would do if you were already the person you desire to become, to feel yourself being that ideal version of yourself, and to rehearse this new identity in your mind every day until it becomes more real to you than your current circumstances. If you desire health, you must begin to see yourself as a healthy person. You must imagine yourself moving with ease and strength. You must think of yourself as vibrant and well. You must refuse to identify with sickness, even while symptoms remain, because your identification is your instruction to your subconscious mind, and whatever you identify with, you become. Every thought you think is a cause set in motion that must produce an effect in your experience, and the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life, because you live in a world of your own mental making, surrounded by the visible outpicturing of your invisible thought patterns. When you understand this fundamental principle of consciousness, you realize that you are not a victim of circumstances, but a creator of circumstances. You are not at the mercy of external conditions, but the master of your own destiny through the proper direction of your thought. And this understanding transforms prayer from petition into creation, from begging into commanding, from weakness into power. The thoughts you habitually think create deep grooves in your consciousness, well-worn paths that your mind automatically follows. And if these habitual thoughts are negative, if you customarily think thoughts of fear and worry and limitation, you have created mental ruts that perpetuate negative conditions in your life, regardless of how fervently you pray for positive change. A man confessed to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he prayed every morning for success in his business, but spent the rest of his day thinking thoughts of failure, imagining worst-case scenarios, worrying about competition, fearing economic downturns, and expecting difficulties. And his habitual negative thinking completely cancelled out his brief morning prayer, because the subconscious mind responds to your dominant mental diet, not to your occasional affirmations. You cannot think negative thoughts 23 hours a day and expect 1 hour of positive prayer to overcome the damage. You cannot fill your mind with fear and doubt and anxiety throughout your waking hours and expect a few minutes of affirmation to transform your life. Because consciousness is the sum total of all your thinking, and you must establish a new habitual thought pattern, a new mental atmosphere, a new dominant vibration that aligns with your desires. The practice of scientific prayer therefore extends to every moment of your day. It requires that you become vigilant about your thinking, that you catch yourself when you slip into old negative patterns, that you consciously redirect your thoughts toward what you want rather than what you fear, that you discipline your mind to dwell on the good you desire rather than the evil you wish to avoid. And this constant watchfulness, this moment-by-moment choosing of life-affirming thoughts, is what creates the consciousness that manifests as transformed circumstances. The subconscious mind knows no difference between a real experience and one that is vividly imagined. And this is the key to understanding how prayer works, because when you imagine your desire as already fulfilled with sufficient clarity and feeling, your subconscious accepts this imagined experience as real and proceeds to create in your outer world the conditions that correspond to this inner acceptance. This principle explains why worry is so destructive, because when you worry, you are actually using your imagination to create vivid pictures of what you do not want. You are impressing upon your subconscious mind detailed scenarios of failure and loss and disaster, and your subconscious, being unable to distinguish between a real disaster and an imagined one, accepts these negative images and works to bring them into manifestation. When you pray in the old way, describing your problems and fears and limitations, you are actually engaging in negative creative visualization. You are using the sacred time of prayer to rehearse and reinforce the very conditions you seek to escape. And the more emotion you put into these descriptions of lack and sickness and trouble, the more deeply you impress them upon your subconscious mind, and the more certainly they will continue in your experience. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she could not stop worrying about her children, that she prayed constantly for their safety, but found herself imagining terrible accidents and illnesses that might befall them, and he had to explain that her worrying was actually a form of negative prayer, that she was using her imagination to create the very scenarios she feared, that she was impressing upon her subconscious mind images of harm coming to her children. And if she persisted in this mental practice, she might actually attract the difficulties she feared. The correct use of imagination in prayer is to create mental movies of the happy ending, to see in your mind's eye your children safe and healthy and thriving, to imagine scenes that imply the fulfillment of your desire for their well-being. to make these positive images so vivid and so emotionally charged that they feel absolutely real to you. And when you do this, you are giving your subconscious mind a blueprint for health and safety and success rather than a blueprint for disaster. Your imagination is a sacred gift, a divine faculty that makes you a creator like your creator. And when you use it consciously and purposefully to construct images of your desired good, you are praying in the way that produces results. Forgiveness is not a moral duty or a religious obligation, but a psychological necessity, a mental house cleaning that frees you from the poison of resentment and opens the channel through which your good can flow to you. Because as long as you harbor grievances and nurse old wounds and maintain anger toward those who have wronged you, you are binding yourself to the past and blocking your own blessings through the law of your own consciousness. When you hold resentment toward another person, you are actually binding yourself to that person through cords of negative emotion. You are keeping yourself locked in a prison of your own making. You are poisoning your own consciousness and therefore your own experience. Because the law of mind states that what you think and feel about another, you are actually creating in your own life. The person you resent may be completely unaffected by your feelings, may not even know of your anger, may be happily living their life while you suffer the consequences of your own negative emotions, because resentment does not hurt the person you resent, but rather it hurts you. It eats away at your peace of mind, it disturbs your sleep, it creates tension in your body, it blocks your prayers from being answered. A man came to Dr. Joseph Murphy seeking help with chronic stomach problems. And during the consultation, it was discovered that he harbored deep resentment toward a former business partner who had betrayed him years earlier, and he admitted that he thought about this betrayal every day, that he imagined confronting this person, that he rehearsed in his mind all the things he would like to say to him, and his resentment had become so much a part of his consciousness that it was literally eating away at his stomach. The prescription given was not medical treatment, but forgiveness. Not as a favor to the person who had wronged him, but as a healing for his own consciousness. Because forgiveness is the act of releasing the past, of letting go of grievances, of freeing yourself from emotional bondage. And when you truly forgive, you dissolve the negative emotional charge that has been poisoning your mind and body. The technique of forgiveness in prayer is to imagine the person you need to forgive and to silently wish them well, to see them as happy and successful and blessed, to release them completely in your mind, to let go of all desire for revenge or vindication. And as you do this, you will feel a lightness in your spirit, a release of tension in your body, an opening in your consciousness through which your own good can now flow freely. The Bible promises you that before you call, I will answer, and while you are yet speaking, I will hear. And this promise reveals the truth that your answer already exists before you pray, that your desire is already fulfilled in the invisible realm of infinite possibility, that God has already said yes to every request before you make it, and your prayer is not a means of getting God to give you something, but rather a means of aligning your consciousness with what is already yours. This is perhaps the most revolutionary understanding that can transform your prayer life. The realization that you are not trying to create something new or convince God to grant you a favor, but rather you are becoming aware of and accepting what already exists in the dimension of spirit, in the realm where all things are possible, in the consciousness of infinite abundance that is your true nature. When you pray for healing, the healing already exists as a possibility in consciousness. Health is already yours in the spiritual dimension, and your prayer is the act of claiming this health, of accepting it, of bringing it from the invisible into the visible through your belief and your feeling and your imagination. When you pray for prosperity, abundance is not something you must work for or struggle for or prove yourself worthy of, because infinite substance already exists. Unlimited good is already available. The riches of the universe are already stored up for you, and your prayer is simply the act of opening your consciousness to receive what has always been yours. A woman asked Dr. Joseph Murphy why she needed to pray at all if her good already existed, and the answer was that prayer is not about creating your good, but about accepting your good, not about making something happen, but about allowing something to happen. Not about changing God's mind, but about changing your own mind so that it aligns with the divine reality where all your desires are already fulfilled. The technique of prayer based on this understanding is to begin not with asking but with thanking, not with describing what you lack, but with accepting what you have, not with future hoping but with present claiming, because when you give thanks for something before you see it, when you claim something before it manifests, when you accept something as already yours in consciousness, you are operating the law that brings the invisible into visibility, that translates spiritual reality into physical form, that makes prayer effective and powerful and certain in its results. Doubt is the only thing that can prevent your prayer from being answered, because doubt is the acceptance of two contradictory states of consciousness simultaneously. It is trying to believe and disbelieve at the same time. It is planting a seed, and then immediately digging it up to see if it is growing. And when you pray with doubt, you are actually canceling out your prayer. You are negating your affirmation, and you are impressing upon your subconscious mind the message that you do not really believe in what you are declaring. When Jesus taught that if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing shall be impossible unto you, and when he explained that the person who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed, and should not expect to receive anything from the Lord, he was revealing the psychological principle that your subconscious mind responds only to your dominant conviction, to what you really believe deep down, to the feeling tone that underlies your words and thoughts. You can repeat affirmations for hours every day. You can speak with great conviction about your desires. You can perform all the techniques of visualization and imagination, but if underneath all of this there lurks a secret doubt, a hidden disbelief, a quiet voice that whispers this will never work, you are undermining your own efforts and guaranteeing that your prayer will not be answered. A man reported to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been practicing affirmative prayer for months without results, and when asked if he truly believed his affirmations would manifest, he admitted that part of him doubted, that he was not really sure this method would work for him, that he was trying it as an experiment but was prepared for it to fail. And this attitude of doubt, this divided mind, this double consciousness, was precisely what prevented his manifestation. The way to overcome doubt is not through willpower or mental effort, but through the accumulation of small victories, through starting with prayers that are easy for you to believe in, through building your faith gradually by witnessing the law in operation. And as your faith grows through experience, as you prove to yourself that consciousness is indeed creative, as you see your imaginal acts manifest in your world, your doubts dissolve and you become able to believe in and therefore manifest greater demonstrations of the law. You must never pray while doubting. You must never affirm while disbelieving. You must never imagine while thinking it is just fantasy, because the moment you entertain doubt, you have broken your mental connection with your desire and must begin again to build the consciousness of acceptance. The silence of your own mind is the doorway to infinite power, and when you learn to enter into this silence, to quiet the chatter of your conscious thinking, to still the endless stream of thoughts and worries and mental noise, you create the condition in which your subconscious mind can receive clear impressions and in which the still small voice of infinite intelligence can make itself heard. Most people never experience true mental silence. They go through life with their minds constantly racing, jumping from one thought to another, rehashing the past, worrying about the future, analyzing and judging and commenting on everything around them. And this constant mental agitation prevents them from accessing the deeper levels of consciousness where prayer becomes truly effective. When you sit down to pray, and immediately your mind fills with 1,000 thoughts. When you try to concentrate on your desire and find yourself distracted by mental chatter, when you attempt to feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, but cannot maintain the feeling because other thoughts keep intruding, you are experiencing the undisciplined mind that most people possess, and until you learn to control your mind, to direct it purposefully, to still it when necessary, your prayers will lack the power and concentration needed to impress your subconscious deeply. A woman complained to Dr. Joseph Murphy that she could not seem to pray effectively because her mind wandered constantly, because she would begin visualizing her desire, and within seconds she would be thinking about something completely unrelated, and she wondered if she simply did not have the mental capacity for this kind of prayer. The truth explained to her was that the ability to concentrate is a skill that must be developed through practice, that everyone begins with a wandering mind, that the technique is not to fight against the wandering thoughts, but to gently and repeatedly bring your attention back to your chosen focus. To be patient with yourself as you build this mental muscle. The practice of entering the silence is to sit quietly in a comfortable position, to close your eyes, to take several deep breaths, to consciously relax every muscle in your body, and then to begin quieting your mind by focusing on a single point. Perhaps your breathing, perhaps a simple phrase or word, perhaps the imaginal scene of your wish fulfilled, and whenever your mind wanders, you simply notice without judgment and gently return your attention to your chosen focus. As you practice this daily, you will find that the periods of silence grow longer, that your ability to concentrate improves, that you can hold a mental image or feeling for extended periods, and in this silence, in this state of focused attention, your prayers gain tremendous power because you are impressing your subconscious mind with clarity and intensity, rather than with scattered, diluted mental energy. The laws of mind are as reliable and predictable as the laws of mathematics or physics, and when you understand these laws and apply them correctly, you will get results as certain as 2 + 2 = 4, because the universe operates by law, not by whim. Consciousness creates by principle, not by chance, and your subconscious mind responds according to fixed patterns that never vary, regardless of who is using them. This is the great hope and the great empowerment of scientific prayer. The realization that you are not dependent on the mood of a capricious deity or the random workings of fate, but rather you are working with an impersonal law that gives the same results to everyone who uses it correctly, just as electricity works for anyone who properly connects to its power, regardless of their moral character or religious affiliation. When you plant a seed in the ground, you do not pray for it to grow. You do not beg the earth to accept it. You do not worry that the soil might reject it, because you know the law of growth. You understand that the seed contains within itself the pattern and power to become a plant. And when you provide the right conditions of soil and water and sunlight, the law takes over and the seed must grow. Prayer works by the same principle. When you plant a seed in consciousness through vivid imagination and deep feeling, when you provide the right conditions of faith and acceptance and gratitude, the law of subconscious mind takes over and your desire must manifest. Not because you are special or worthy or lucky, but because you are using a universal law that cannot fail. A man expressed frustration to Dr. Joseph Murphy that prayer seemed to work for some people but not for him, that he had tried everything he learned but still did not get results, and the explanation given was that the law works for everyone without exception. But if you are not getting results, then you are not applying the law correctly. You are missing some element of the formula. You are doing something that contradicts your stated desire. The law does not play favorites. It does not grant wishes to some while denying others. It simply responds to the state of consciousness you maintain. And if your consciousness is one of lack and fear and doubt, the law must produce lack and fear and doubt in your experience. While if your consciousness is one of abundance and faith and acceptance, the law must produce abundance and faith and acceptance. You must stop thinking of prayer as a mysterious spiritual practice whose success depends on divine favor, and start thinking of it as a science, a technology of consciousness, a systematic method that produces predictable results when applied correctly. And when you approach prayer with this understanding, you will begin to get consistent demonstrations, because you will treat it with the same confidence and expectation you bring to any other proven principle. Sleep is the time when your conscious mind relaxes its control, and your subconscious mind becomes most receptive to suggestion, and this is why the thoughts and feelings you entertain just before falling asleep are of critical importance, because they sink deeply into your subconscious during the night and work powerfully to shape your tomorrow. The last 5 minutes before you fall asleep should be the most carefully guarded moments of your entire day, because in those drowsy minutes when you hover between waking and sleeping, your subconscious is wide open to receive impressions, and whatever you impress upon it during this time will multiply throughout the night and manifest in your experience. Most people waste this precious time by reviewing the problems of the day, by worrying about tomorrow's difficulties, by replaying arguments or frustrations, by thinking about everything that went wrong or everything they fear might go wrong. And then they wonder why they wake up feeling anxious or depressed, why their problems seem to multiply, why their lives do not improve. When you fall asleep while thinking negative thoughts, you are programming your subconscious mind for 8 hours with negativity. You are giving it extended time to work on creating more of what you do not want. You are using the most powerful programming period available to reinforce your limitations rather than to create your desires. A woman shared with Dr. Joseph Murphy that she suffered from insomnia, and when she finally did fall asleep, she had nightmares. And when asked about her bedtime routine, she revealed that she spent the time before sleep reviewing all her problems, thinking about her debts, worrying about her health, and rehashing old grievances, essentially filling her mind with every negative thing in her life, right before surrendering to sleep. The prescription was simple but transformative: to use the pre-sleep time for prayer instead of worry, to lie in bed and imagine her desires as already fulfilled, to feel gratitude for answered prayers, to repeat affirmations of health and prosperity and peace, and to maintain these positive thoughts and feelings until sleep overtook her. The technique is to decide before you go to bed what you want to impress upon your subconscious mind, to choose one desire or one affirmation or one scene that implies your wish fulfilled, and then as you lie in bed ready for sleep, to focus all your attention on this chosen thought, to imagine it vividly, to feel it deeply, to repeat it gently, and to let it be the last thing in your consciousness as you drift off to sleep. Because your subconscious will then work on this impression throughout the night, and you will wake in the morning with this positive thought established more deeply in your consciousness and moving closer to manifestation in your world. Comparison with others is one of the great thieves of spiritual power, because when you look at another person's success or health or happiness and feel envy or inadequacy, when you measure yourself against external standards and find yourself wanting, when you believe that someone else having abundance means there is less for you, you are operating from a consciousness of limitation and competition that blocks your own good from manifesting. The universe is infinite in its abundance. There is more than enough for everyone. One person's gain is not another person's loss. And when you truly understand this principle, you can rejoice in another's good fortune, knowing that it demonstrates the law in operation and proves that what is possible for one is possible for all. When you see someone living the life you desire, experiencing the health you seek, enjoying the prosperity you want, your natural reaction might be jealousy or resentment, but these emotions are actually prayers for continued lack in your own life. Because when you resent another's good, you are affirming that good is scarce, that there is not enough to go around, that their having means you're not having, and this consciousness of limitation programs your subconscious mind to create experiences of limitation. A man confessed to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he felt bitter when he saw his colleagues being promoted while he remained in the same position, that he could not help feeling angry when he heard about their salary increases and their success. And this bitterness, this resentment, this comparing mind was the very thing preventing his own advancement, because he was operating from a consciousness of competition and lack rather than from a consciousness of abundant opportunity for all. The spiritual practice is to bless others in their good fortune, to genuinely wish them well, to use their success as evidence that the law works and as inspiration for your own demonstration, to say to yourself when you see another person prospering, "There is my good made visible. If the law worked for them, it will work for me. I rejoice in their abundance, knowing that infinite abundance is available to me as well." When you can truly celebrate another's blessings without comparing yourself to them, when you can witness their answered prayers without feeling diminished, when you can see their manifestations as proof of the law rather than as proof of your own lack, You shift your consciousness from competition to cooperation with the universe, and you open yourself to receive your own unique good that is waiting for you in consciousness. Repetition is the natural method by which new beliefs are established in your subconscious mind. And when you repeat an affirmation or a visualization or a prayer of acceptance over and over, you are not trying to convince God or change external circumstances, but rather you are impressing a new pattern on your consciousness. You are wearing a new groove in your mind. You are creating a new habitual way of thinking that will eventually become automatic and therefore creative. When a child learns the multiplication tables through repetition, the facts become embedded in consciousness until they are automatic. And the same principle applies to spiritual truths and affirmations. They must be repeated until they become your automatic thought, until they replace the old negative patterns, until they become the lens through which you view your world. The mistake that many people make is to repeat affirmations mechanically without feeling, to recite words like a parrot without engaging their emotions or their imagination, and this kind of empty repetition has little power because the subconscious responds to feeling more than to words, to conviction more than to recitation. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had written her affirmation 100 times every day for a month but saw no results, and when asked how she felt while writing, she admitted that it was tedious, that her mind wandered, that she was just going through the motions without really believing what she was writing. And this mechanical repetition without feeling was why her affirmation remained powerless. The correct method of repetition is to repeat your affirmation slowly, thoughtfully, with deep feeling, allowing each word to sink into your consciousness, pausing to imagine what it would feel like if the statement were already true, maintaining the emotional conviction that what you are affirming is reality, and doing this several times a day until the affirmation becomes your natural thought, until you believe it without effort, until it becomes as automatic as your name. You might repeat your affirmation 10 times in the morning, 10 times at noon, 10 times before bed. But each repetition should be done with full attention and deep feeling, not rushed or mechanical, because one repetition with feeling is worth 1,000 repetitions without feeling, and your goal is not to reach a certain number of repetitions, but to impress your subconscious mind so deeply that your affirmation becomes your reality. The present moment is the only point of power you possess. And when you learn to pray in the eternal now instead of projecting your good into some distant future, you activate the creative forces that exist only in this present instant, because the past is gone and cannot be changed except in memory, and the future never arrives since it is always tomorrow, and all the power of consciousness, all the creative energy of your subconscious mind, all the infinite intelligence of the universe is available to you only in this present moment. When you pray, saying, "I will be healed, I will be prosperous, I will be happy," you are placing your good in a future that recedes before you like the horizon, always visible but never reachable, because tomorrow when it arrives will still be today, and you will still be affirming a future condition rather than a present reality. The language of effective prayer is always present tense, always now, always I am rather than I will be. Because the subconscious mind creates from your present consciousness, not from your future hopes. And when you say, "I am healthy, I am prosperous, I am blessed," you are claiming your good in the only moment that exists, in the eternal now where all creation takes place. A man explained to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been affirming for years that he would someday be successful, that he would eventually achieve his goals, that he would in time overcome his difficulties, and he could not understand why this someday never arrived, why his circumstances remained unchanged despite his persistent affirmations. The problem was in the very structure of his prayer, in the future tense language that kept his good always just out of reach, always coming but never here, always promised but never delivered, because he was programming his subconscious mind with the consciousness of not yet having rather than the consciousness of already possessing. The shift that changes everything is the shift from future hoping to present claiming, from I will be to I am, from someday to now. And when you make this shift, You may feel at first that you are lying to yourself, that you are denying obvious facts, that you are engaging in wishful thinking. But what you are actually doing is impressing upon your subconscious mind the end result as already accomplished, and your subconscious responds to this impression by rearranging your circumstances to match your claim. The technique is to catch yourself whenever you use future tense language about your desires and immediately correct it to present tense, to stop saying "I will" and start saying "I am", to cease projecting your good into tomorrow and start claiming it today, because today is all you have. Now is the only time that exists. And when you pray in the present moment with present tense language and present moment feeling, you are operating the law of consciousness in the way it was designed to work. Your words create your world, but not through some magical property of the sounds themselves, rather through the consciousness they express and the feelings they evoke and the beliefs they reinforce. Because language is the vehicle through which you impress patterns on your subconscious mind, and the habitual way you speak about yourself and your life becomes the blueprint from which your experience is constructed. When you constantly describe yourself as tired, as overwhelmed, as struggling, as barely making it, when you tell everyone who will listen about your problems and your pains and your limitations, when you use language that emphasizes lack and difficulty and hardship, you are not simply reporting facts, but actually creating facts. You are not describing reality, but constructing reality through the creative power of your word. The ancient wisdom teaches that life and death are in the power of the tongue, that by your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall be condemned. And this teaching reveals the psychological truth that your habitual speech patterns program your subconscious mind and therefore determine your experience. A woman wondered why her prayers for healing seemed ineffective, and when her daily conversation was observed, it became clear that she spent hours every day talking about her symptoms, describing her pain to anyone who would listen, identifying herself through her illness, using language that reinforced her condition with every sentence she spoke. You cannot pray for health in the morning and talk about sickness all day long and expect your prayer to be answered. You cannot affirm abundance for 5 minutes and complain about lack for the remaining hours and expect prosperity to manifest. Because your subconscious mind is listening to everything you say and creating according to your dominant speech pattern, not according to your occasional affirmation. The discipline of the spiritual student is to monitor their speech, to become conscious of the words they use, to notice when they are speaking negatively and to immediately correct themselves, to practice describing life the way they want it to be rather than the way it appears to be. This does not mean denying facts or lying about circumstances, but rather it means refusing to give power to negative conditions through constant verbal reinforcement. It means choosing words that build up rather than tear down, that affirm possibility rather than limitation, that declare faith rather than fear. When someone asks how you are, instead of launching into a detailed description of all your troubles, you can say, "I am blessed, I am growing, I am moving forward." And these words, spoken with conviction, begin to shift your consciousness and therefore your experience, because you are using the creative power of speech in alignment with your desires rather than in opposition to them. The test of your faith comes not when everything is going well, but when circumstances seem to contradict your prayer. When appearances suggest that your affirmation is not working, when the evidence of your senses argues against your belief, and it is precisely in these moments that you must hold fast to your inner conviction. Refuse to be moved by outer conditions. Persist in the consciousness of your wish fulfilled, despite all contrary evidence. This is what it means to walk by faith and not by sight. To believe in the invisible reality of your answered prayer, while the visible world still shows the old condition. To maintain your new consciousness even when nothing seems to be changing, because there is always a time lag between the impression made on consciousness and the manifestation in circumstances. And if you waver during this interval, if you return to the old consciousness of lack and fear, you abort the manifestation and must begin again. When you plant a seed in the ground, you do not dig it up every day to see if it is growing. You do not panic when you see no immediate sprouting. You do not abandon your faith in the seed just because days pass without visible results. Because you understand the principle of growth, You know there is invisible activity taking place beneath the surface. You trust the law that governs the transformation of seed into plant. The same patience and persistence must characterize your prayer life. When you have impressed your subconscious mind with your desire, when you have assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, when you have given thanks for your answered prayer, you must then maintain this consciousness regardless of what your senses report, regardless of how long it seems to take, regardless of apparent setbacks or delays. A man reported to Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had prayed scientifically for a new position, that he had imagined himself in the job and felt gratitude for it. But weeks had passed and no opportunity had appeared, and he was beginning to doubt the method and consider returning to his old prayers of petition. This wavering, this doubt, this return to the old consciousness is precisely what prevents manifestation, because the man was like a farmer who plants a seed and then digs it up because he does not see immediate growth. And in doing so, he destroys the very thing he planted. The instruction given was to persist in the assumption, to continue feeling grateful for the position even though it had not yet appeared. To refuse to let appearances shake his inner conviction, to know that consciousness is cause and conditions are effect, and when the cause is established, the effect must follow. And within a short time of renewed faith and persistence, the perfect opportunity presented itself in a way he never could have orchestrated through his own efforts. Understanding the difference between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind is essential to effective prayer, because these two aspects of your one mind have completely different functions, and most prayer failures occur because people try to use the conscious mind to do the work that only the subconscious mind can do. Your conscious mind is the reasoning, choosing, directing faculty that decides what you want and sets the goal, while your subconscious mind is the creative, feeling, and manifesting faculty that actually brings your desire into form through channels you could never consciously plan or predict. When you try to figure out how your prayer will be answered, when you attempt to orchestrate the means by which your desire will manifest, when you insist that it must come in a particular way through particular people or particular circumstances, you are operating from your limited conscious mind and actually blocking the infinite intelligence of your subconscious from working in its own perfect way. Your conscious mind can see only the obvious possibilities, the logical pathways, the means that appear available to you based on your current circumstances, but your subconscious mind has access to infinite intelligence, to unlimited resources, to possibilities you cannot imagine. And when you release your desire to your subconscious and trust it to manifest in its own way, you open yourself to receive through channels that surprise and delight you. A woman prayed for money to pay her rent, and in her prayer she specified that it must come from her employer as a raise, or from her parents as a loan, or from winning a contest, because these were the only ways she could consciously imagine receiving the money. And by limiting the channels through which her good could come, she actually prevented manifestation. The principle is to pray for the end result, to clearly define what you want, to feel the reality of having it, but then to release completely how it will come, to trust your subconscious mind to arrange the means, to remain open to unexpected channels and surprising solutions. Your conscious mind's job is to choose the destination and to maintain the consciousness of arrival, while your subconscious mind's job is to plan the route and provide the vehicle. And when you try to do your subconscious mind's work, when you insist on controlling the how, you interfere with the very intelligence that is trying to deliver your good. The prayer technique is to state your desire clearly, to imagine it fulfilled, to feel grateful for it, and then to release it completely with the inner statement, "I do not know how this will manifest, but I know it will manifest. I trust the infinite intelligence within me to bring this about in the perfect way at the perfect time." And this release, this surrender of the how, this trust in the subconscious process allows your good to come to you through paths of least resistance that your conscious mind never would have considered. The final understanding that completes your education in scientific prayer is the recognition that you are not a separate being petitioning an external God, but rather You are an individualized expression of the one infinite intelligence, a point through which universal consciousness becomes personal, a channel through which divine creative power flows into manifestation. And when you pray, knowing this truth, when you claim your unity with the source of all good, when you recognize that the kingdom of heaven is within you, you discover that prayer is not reaching up to something above, but reaching into something within, not begging for what you lack, but claiming what is already yours. This understanding transforms prayer from religion to science, from superstition to psychology, from mystery to method. And when you approach prayer with this consciousness of your divine nature, of your oneness with infinite intelligence, of your identity as a creative center of God consciousness, you pray with authority rather than with pleading. You speak the word knowing it has power. You claim your good knowing it must manifest. Because you are not a beggar hoping for charity, but a king claiming your inheritance, not a powerless victim hoping for rescue, but a powerful creator directing the forces of your own mind. Throughout these teachings, you have learned that prayer is not what you were taught, that the old methods fail because they operate from false premises, that begging and pleading reinforce the very lack you seek to overcome, that the prayer that works is the prayer of acceptance, the prayer that claims the invisible as though it were visible, the prayer that gives thanks for answered requests before the answer appears, the prayer that assumes the feeling of the wish fulfilled and maintains that assumption until it hardens into fact. You have learned that your subconscious mind is the creative medium through which all your experiences are formed, that it accepts without question whatever you impress upon it through thought and feeling and imagination, that it works day and night to bring into your outer world whatever exists in your inner world, and that when you change your consciousness through scientific prayer, your world must change to match. You have learned that faith is not blind belief, but mental acceptance, that imagination is the workshop of creation, that feeling is the secret of impression, that persistence in the new consciousness is what brings manifestation, and that all the power you need already exists within you, waiting to be claimed and directed through the proper understanding of mental and spiritual law. The missing formula for divine results that you were never taught is simply this: decide what you want. Imagine it as already accomplished. Feel the reality of it now. Give thanks for it as already received. Maintain this consciousness regardless of appearances, and trust the infinite intelligence within you to manifest it in perfect ways and perfect timing. Because when you pray in this way, you are no longer a supplicant hoping for divine favor, but a conscious creator using the laws of mind that govern all manifestation. And your prayers must be answered because you are working with law, not against it. With principle, not against it. With the very nature of consciousness itself.